Live from Orlando, Florida, you're listening to the Orlando Magic HQ podcast, the voice of Magic fans. Join us every week for a unique fan perspective on all of the latest Magic news and updates. The show starts now.
What's up, Magic fans? Welcome back to another episode of the Orlando Magic HQ podcast, brought to you by the Believe Podcast Network and Bet Online. We're your host, Al, myself, Anthony. Today is Friday, January 31st, and we're already entering our second month of the new year, and it definitely feels like it is going by extremely fast. And in today's episode, we're going to talk a good amount of time talking about the NBA trade deadline, what that's looking like for the Magic, who could be some of those candidates that the Magic may be looking for, and is there really a possibility that the Magic could or could not be making a move? We're recording this episode literally just a couple of hours before the Magic play and start their West Coast road trip, and playing against the Portland Trail Blazers here at 10 o'clock. So we did also get the announcement of who is making the East reserve for the NBA All-Star Game. Unfortunately, Magic will not be represented in this year's All-Star Game. And then we'll talk some other elements. But before we get into it, just a quick word from our sponsors, Bet Online. Bet Online is the world's most trusted betting platform and your number one source for online betting in 2025. Whether you're a seasoned fan or a first-time bettor, BetOnline is your ultimate game day companion with the largest selection of odds on everything from football, the NBA, college basketball, to NHL and UFC. BetOnline is your number one sports betting source for the new year. Every touchdown to three-pointer and hat trick, BetOnline has you covered with odds, stats, and more for every game, every play, and every win. BetOnline, the game starts here. Also, check out our guy, Brandon Kravitz, who has all new episodes of the Zone Heads podcast with Brandon and his new co-host, Zach, which are available wherever you download your favorite podcast, and catch BK live on In the Zone weekdays on 96.9 The Game, starting at 3:30 p.m. And just real quick, before we get into today's episode, the HQ family got some really heartbreaking news recently, where if you've been following us for a little while, you have definitely heard Kieran on the podcast. You've heard or read his words and his articles that he's written for us on OrlandoMagicHQ.com. And again, if you've been following us for a minute, you know that Kieran was one of our first in-game reporters and was a big foundational piece for us, and really growing from a Instagram page to extension to websites and in-game coverage, and really a big piece of where we are now. And unfortunately, we got the news of his passing, and we just want to take a moment to kind of trying to find the words, right? Because I am terrible when it comes to these things. And Al, when you had shared the message with me, it took us by surprise. It made the world kind of pause for a moment and made you really appreciate kind of our families and our loved ones just a little bit more. When I see my kids, I've been hugging them just a little bit longer than I have normally. But it's a reminder that life is super short. Our time on this earth is not guaranteed. Every moment that passes is unfortunately a moment that we are closer to the end game. And I'm really sorry for his friends, his family, the times that I got to share time with Kieran. One of the things I remember most was, his dad always being around, and you can tell that Kieran was such a loved individual. He had such a positive influence and positive voice with us and the HQ family, and it's been a really tough blow. So just want to take a moment and really say that, condolences to his family, and man, buddy, you're gonna be missed, man.
Yeah, man, I don't even have the words. And just like you, I'm not the best at this kind of talks and speeches. And you're never ready for this, right? First things first, Kieran, to your point, a big reason why we are today. He was one of the first persons that trusted us with this new wave of what we had envisioned to become Orlando Magic HQ. Whether it was the website, the articles, the in-game coverage, it was all about ideally getting credentials one day and then giving one of these guys a shot to go out there and cover games for us. We're both in the financial industry. We work a lot. We don't have the time to do it ourselves. So we had to entrust someone to do this for us. And Kieran became that person. Again, you guys saw the articles. You guys saw him on the podcast many times with us. You might have met him in person with us when we did some of the NBA draft parties that we attended a few years back when we drafted Suggs and Franz, when we drafted Paolo. So it's tough, man, because such a great kid, to your point, always with his dad, loved by his family, his friends. Couldn't believe it. Couldn't believe it when I saw that on Instagram yesterday morning. Then I sent it to you, and I know the two of us were equally taken aback by the news and really not knowing how to react to the news. But I'll end it with this, man. And this is why what we do sometimes means so much, even though we don't realize it. But we made the announcement on social media. And I got to say, thank you so much from the bottom of my heart to the Six Man Show, Delando, and everyone else that I'm not remembering right now that made a donation to his family to help with the funeral expenses, just to deal with what's next in life for them. He recently got married. There is so much to just break your heart. And again, the Magic community all responded in a positive way, joined us in this moment of shock and really not knowing how to handle the news. But again, it makes it all worth it when you say, hey, we have a community that we haven't met many of these people in person, unfortunately, but yet we know the support is there. So thank you guys for that. Again, really sorry to his family, his dad, his mom, his entire friend circle. It's something that took us completely by surprise. But forever thankful for what he meant to Magic HQ, for helping us be what we are today. And we hope he's in a great place. And somebody said this on Twitter, and it made me laugh for a change, which was, I hope he's up there with Deb watching Magic games and rooting for us as we move forward. We're finally healthy, so hopefully they'll enjoy the next few months here of Magic basketball.
And once again, condolences to the Patel family. And I'm as I mentioned before, I'm terrible at this type of stuff. So we're gonna transition. We're gonna talk about what I feel like I am good at talking about, which is Magic basketball. So pivoting, Magic win against Detroit, 121-113, a huge, well-needed win for the Magic, who was able to shake off a losing streak. Paolo and Franz both going off with 32 points. Franz putting on a crazy show, scoring 25 points in the fourth quarter. Franz, man, his level of play, especially him missing as many games as he's missed, it's fresh to see, because that type of offensive power is exactly what we've needed. Like, even, and not comparing the two, but even like watching Paolo play since he's been back, it hasn't felt as smooth as what we've seen from Franz. Like, even when Paolo has had a good statistical game on the offensive end, it hasn't really transitioned into winning. And granted, we know that he's still getting his feet back into the game and getting used to the NBA speed again after missing so many games. So we know that it's going to take a minute, but to be able to have a player that can contribute that much effectively on the offensive end was huge. Unfortunately, it was followed up by some overtime losses against Miami, 125-119, where the Magic blew a double-digit lead in regulation and a 6-point lead with 90 seconds left in the fourth quarter, which was a tough loss. So the Magic looking to bounce back against Portland. That would be just here shortly in a couple hours. So the first thing that I want to hear from you, Al, is As of now, as we're recording this, the Magic are at 500, and we're tied for the sixth seed in the East with Miami, who's at 23 and 23. Now that we're starting to slowly get these healthy bodies back, Goga Batadze had also returned for the Magic. A little scared that we've gotten from Jalen Suggs, who looks like he re-injured himself. So for some crazy reason, every time Jalen Suggs gets hurt, it always looks like it is way worse than what we get back, right? Every time it looks like he is injured, it looks like a season-ending injury, and somehow, the next game he's questionable to return, not definitively out. But what's your status right now? How are you feeling with the team and the position of where we're standing?
Well, I think that Heat game, which, as to your point, we ended up losing. Hurt, man. I had not taken a loss that badly in a long time. I was not happy, man. I felt like we had that game. We had it under control. It felt like we had a couple of times in the third and fourth quarter, a double-digit lead in that game. Then we transitioned into late in the fourth, in which we were up by 6 points. Unfortunately, blew that lead. Go into overtime. The first overtime, we're up by 6 with 90 seconds left. Somehow, we blow that lead also, and ultimately we end up losing the game. So not happy with that, because to me, it would have been so great to head to the West Coast trip with a 25 and 23 record, a nice little 2-game above 500 record, and you build on that. Instead, we're 24 and 24. Like you mentioned earlier, we're tied now with Miami with a 500 record. So not ideal. But like we talked about last week, when we first found out the news about Paolo and Franz getting injured, we said it all along. Like, if we can be at 500 or around there by the time they come back and they start getting healthier, we'll be fine. We'll find a way to make a run and end the season strong. So not ideal. I think that we could be better than where we are today. But we expect some bumps along the road. It wasn't going to be easy with reintegrating Paolo, Franz. Suggs missed some time also. Now Goga also. The good news is we're getting healthy. We're getting bodies back. We're finally having some depth again. Gary Harris, it seems like he's going to play tonight also in Portland. So not sure how much he's going to play or not, but it's another body we can throw out there to help us out. So to answer your question, it's not ideal. I think we should be better than 500 at this particular time. And don't forget, man, back in our season preview episode, I said it. I don't see us winning 47 or more. I think we'll end up either at 47 or less. It's going to be tough for this team to go on a crazy run and win more than 47 like they did last year. And again, injuries are to blame for that. But also the East is a lot more competitive. But what about you? What are your thoughts on being at 500 today, heading to the West Coast, and kind of where we are today in the Eastern Conference?
Yeah, honestly, I'm surprised that we got Franz back this early. I was expecting for him to be out a little bit more. So the fact that the Magic are still at 500 is a good surprise. You can look at it one of two ways. You can be pissed off about it because the Magic were in a better position when it was just Franz and we were finding ways to win games. But at the same time, man, the Magic took a huge blow when it came to Jalen Suggs, Goga, obviously Franz and Paolo. Like those are heavy hitters for this team that carries so much weight in terms of production for us. So the fact that we're still not in the negative is a big deal. And then you get some good revenge tonight against Portland in Portland. This is, in my opinion, a must win. There should be at no point in the season that we are under 500, especially when in the time frame when we should have been under 500 because we didn't have the manpower. We're still finding ways to win basketball games. And it still feels like we're in that mode in a sense, right? Because Paolo's still trying to find his way. Franz is killing it right now for us. So it's a must-win game today. Still not going to be an easy one. Portland has shown that they can show up and play, so we have to be ready for them, especially a late game in Portland.
Yeah, man, it's gonna be tough. On paper, the West Coast trip looks somewhat okay, somewhat manageable. But the way that we've been playing lately is just not Magic basketball. Our defense hasn't looked the way that it had earlier in the season. Even when we lost Paolo, Franz, and Suggs, somehow the defense never took a step back. But it feels like right now there's some miscommunication going on. They don't look the same defensively. And then on the offensive end, also, like there's moments that the offense just looks off. Like that fourth quarter versus Miami, if you compare the first, second, and third quarter to that fourth quarter, it was night and day. We became iso ball. All we did was follow. Here's the ball, make something happen. France, here's the ball, make something happen. That wasn't how we got a double-digit lead in that game. So I blame that on mostly a little bit. Like sometimes he relies too much on our guys just scoring one-on-one. That shouldn't be the way. That to me is not Magic basketball. There are times, of course, when you have to do that, but we have plenty of talent on the court most of the time that you can do pick and rolls, bring it inside, move it around, get the easy shot instead of relying on Paolo just to bully himself to the hoop time and time again. Which, by the way, those final minutes against Miami, Paolo, I tweeted it. I'm like, Paolo, what is going on? Like, he's had a rough time holding onto the ball. Had a really tough time finishing around the basket, which is surprising. So I'm not sure if it's to do with the injury still, if it's to do with just getting acquainted to things again. But down the stretch, he hasn't been able to be relied upon just yet. And we need that guy back because he is getting double teamed, triple teamed. Like, it's insane. But we got to get him some help. And Franz is doing his best. But we need KCP to make shots. We need Cole Anthony when he's out there to be a scorer that drives some defenders towards him. But yeah, it hasn't been pleasant to watch as a Magic fan the last few games where Paolo's tried to take over but hasn't been able to.
Yeah, like really, really huge mistakes, losing the ball during a possession where we could attempt to take the lead. Like little things like that where you don't expect a player like Paolo to make errors in those positions. So again, it's a time game. Nobody likes to hear patience in the Magic fan base, but this is one of those elements where we kind of have to be. We don't have a choice. Like, it's going to take some time for these guys to get back to how they were. So yeah, kind of transitioning to the announcement from today. NBA All-Star Reserves was announced. Jaylen Brown, Pascal Siakam, Darius Garland, Cade Cunningham, first-time All-Star, Evan Mobley, Damian Lillard, Tyler Hero. The Magic will not have representation for the NBA All-Star. So Magic have gone through some injuries, man, and it's been really, really tough. So you don't get Paolo back in there who, let's be honest, obviously we weren't expecting. So it's not a big disappointment that Paolo Banchero is not, in the All-Star game because he's only played a handful of games, right? Or two handful of games. Franz Wagner, on the other hand, you can point at, his injury as well. But, you kind of still held out hope that if you're going to be able to get at least one guy in there, Franz would have been that guy. So, do you consider this an all-star snub, or do you agree with, not having a guy in there for you?
I think it's warranted, man. I mean, out of the two, I said it in a group chat earlier this week. Out of the two, I think Franz had more of a case. He's playing more games. He helped us tremendously while Paolo was out. So I expected, if anything, it would have been him that made the All-Star game. But I'm not surprised. Guys like LaMelo Ball also didn't make the All-Star game, and it was because of games played. He's only played, I think, 3 more than Franz so far this season, although he was one of the top vote getters in the Eastern Conference. So unfortunately, if there are injuries that happen over the next couple of weeks, hopefully there are none. But if it does happen, I think he's next in line. If there's 2, maybe we'll see Franz nick in that way and make the roster that way. But as things stand right now, it's understandable. Like, again, we are Magic fans. We want to see our guys in the All-Star game. Unfortunately, injuries got the best of us this year. And in my opinion, that is why at least we don't have one of them in there. Had that not been the case, and we've been, 3rd seed in the East like we were for a long time, I think you could have seen both make the All-Star game. But unfortunately, the way things played out, it is understandable.
Yeah, I'm not taking out the pitchforks and burning anything on fire. Like it's just what it is, man. The injuries impacted. You have some guys like Tyler Hero that has been having an awesome offensive year. You're looking at Cleveland. You got Darius Garland, Evan Mobley, like guys that are doing big things for their team and number one team in the East. So even Cade Cunningham, the Detroit Pistons are playing so much better this year, and he's their leading catalyst. Like, I am not surprised whatsoever. Injuries got the best out of us, and that's just what it is. And it's okay. Like, nobody is going into this year and saying we have to have an all-star, right? Because that's not the end game. Sure, do you want that exposure? 100%. Do these players want it because of contracts, future contracts and whatnot? Sure. There's so much benefit to them being all-stars, but that's not the end game, man. That's not what this season has laid out for us. This year has thrown so many different challenges for us, with the injury being the number one thing, that we need to make sure that we hold on to this tight rope that we have so close that we can't let go in order to make it to the postseason. So I'll take this all-star break for all of our guys to kind of sit back, relax a little bit, still get their work in, still stay in shape, not get too much into the vacationing, but being able to kind of refresh themselves and be ready for the second part of the season. It's going to be huge. It's going to be a big deal. So not entirely upset. It's going to be okay. There's going to be so much opportunities for these guys to be able to get that all-star nod again for Paolo, and first time for Franz in the future. So we just kind of got to wait it out for them. And this year, you keep the end goal top of mind, because making it into the postseason and making some real noise is the goal.
Yeah, not for nothing. I agree with you. I think, if anything, I actually prefer it that way. It's for these guys to be able to relax for a week, not have to worry about any games, no travel. Just, hey, have some fun, disconnect, come back re-energized. Because, again, we are going to need them to come back strong for the second half of the season. Final 30-ish games after the All-Star break. We need this team to be healthy and to be ready to compete, because, again, we unfortunately have made it harder on ourselves due to all the injuries and our inconsistent play as of late. We got to go on a big run if we want to make the playoffs and in the top 6 in the East.
Yeah. So now we transition into our trade deadline talk. So the biggest name on the market right now is De'Aaron Fox. Like, this is kind of, in a perfect world, if we didn't care about money, right? This is a match made in heaven in so many different ways. In the beginning of the season, during the off season, Paolo Banchero had made a comment. Mike Miller reinforced what that comment was. But the request, the ask, the need is that the Magic need a table setter. It's just what it is. No disrespect to Jalen Suggs, but the Magic need a point guard, right? So it's not every day that a disgruntled young point guard, all-star caliber point guard, is available for trade, and the Magic, who are in desperate need of offense, who are in desperate need of some type of consolidation move, is there an opportunity to be able to get a player in the caliber of Fox? So, not the best defensive player in the NBA, not the best three-point shooter, but still a person that can put buckets on the floor for you and get the team involved. I think he's averaging like 6 assists for the season, 6 assists for his career. When you take a look at De'Aaron Fox, is it what you want? Is it what you're looking for? Are you willing to cash in the chips now? Or is this just we're just wasting our time even talking about it, because realistically, this just isn't the pathway to go. And mind you, to kind of add, he's already made it a point that San Antonio is his preferred destination, but he is open to other teams from my understanding. So what are your thoughts?
So I was just going to lead with that. The fact that he's already said San Antonio is where he wants to go. Some have reported, if not Houston, I guess he is from Houston. That's his hometown. There was a third team. It was Houston. It was San Antonio. There was one more I can think about right now. But ultimately, Miami was the other one that was rumored as a top destination for him. So Orlando didn't come up. And, if you're trying to win, you're going to pay somebody a ton of money. Not for nothing, man, but I want you to be here. So if we're not on the list, cool. I guess we can move on. But realistically now, let's bring it back to how real this is. So we've been hearing about this for a while. We even had a few graphics that we posted on our social media accounts back in December talking about Bovada, the betting website, saying that the Magics were the favorite to land Fox if he was traded. So this has been going on for a few months now. It may still happen. We never know. However, the realistic side of me doesn't see it happening. I don't see us committing, all the money that we committed to Franz, Jalen Suggs. We're about to pay Paolo, and then bring in a guy who also wants a max extension this summer. You're pretty much saying, if you make that move, this is our core to win a championship in the next 2 to 3 years. Like, that's the amount of pressure you would have on yourself if you bring in a guy like Fox to Orlando at this moment. Somebody on X made a great point recently saying Jason Tatum, Giannis, they didn't win a ring until they were 26 years old. All that to say, Paolo and Franz are 21, 22 years old. We're still years away from that, from making that commitment of saying, hey, we're going to go all in and win a chip. Can we do it earlier? I hope so. But realistically, when guys really hit that prime, it's a 25, 26, 27-year range. So we're not quite there yet. I think a move like this might be maybe 2 years too early. I do want to make other moves, which we'll talk about in a few minutes, but I don't think this is the one that we make right now. I don't think it makes a ton of sense. Again, he's not the greatest shooter. He needs the ball in his hands. We know that Paolo and Franz need the ball in their hands. Again, in a perfect world, it makes a lot of sense, but realistically, I don't see it happening. How about you?
Yeah, I don't see it happening. Just the price point for De'Aaron Fox doesn't necessarily make sense, and the amount that the Magic would have to give up. When you take a look at, unfortunately for the Magic this season, and it kind of feels like it's just every season at this point, but the Magic really don't know how great this team really could be because of all the injuries they've been dealing with. Like, they haven't been able to spend a lot of time together, and NBA trade deadline is right around the corner. The issue here is that, we're not developing players anymore, man. It's time to win games. Like, that's just where we're at right now. Like, you got Franz, you got Paolo. These are both ball dominant players. And when you bring in a player like De'Aaron Fox, he's gonna take away that ball from players that need it, right? That are able to create their own shot. So the biggest issue is, his lack of shooting. I believe I looked at his stats yesterday, and we're looking at, mid 30% when it comes to 3-point shooting. And this is for a team that is one of the worst in the league. So you spend all this money on a player that sure can help you offensively, but you're taking the ball away from Paolo and Franz. So it doesn't allow, the fit really just doesn't make a whole lot of sense in my opinion. So it just may not be the right time. Other names that I've heard could be the Anthony Simons, could be the Colin Sextons, it could be the Cam Johnson. So there's so many different routes that the Magic could take. The most important thing is that the Magic need to do something. We're at a point that a shakeup is needed, right? And I'm not saying a full-blown, heavy-hitting shakeup. A change is needed. So the name, again, that we keep hearing is Colin Sexton. And honestly, when you take a look from a contract standpoint, like Colin Sexton does, in my opinion, sounds like an Orlando Magic player, just from his ability to defend. His nickname is the Young Bull, but his aggressiveness on the defensive end, contract wise, he's still on the contract. He'll be an unrestricted free agent in 2026, 2027. And he signed a 4-year, $70 million contract. That is more, believable in terms of taking on a contract than what De'Aaron Fox is making. So is that enough to move the needle for the Magic? At that point, if you do that, what do you do with KCP? Is KCP involved in that move? Are you willing to give up on KCP now? What is it that you're willing to give up, right? Is Cole Anthony still the fit for this team? Jonathan Isaac, he's not having the best season this year, but he also went through a almost like a body transformation with how much weight that he's put on, how much of that impacted his game. Are the Magic, if the Magic directed him to do that, then why would they give up on him mid-season? And that was part of the plan. So there's so many questions personally that I have that we just won't get the answer for. And it makes me believe that, if the Magic do make a move, it's not going to be a move that people are expecting. Like, the Magic aren't going to make a move just for the sake of making a move. They're not thinking about today. They're thinking about today and tomorrow and the year after and 3-4 seasons down the line. So, whoever's available, whatever the target is, needs to be something that benefits the Magic now and in the future.
Yeah, I think you're right. I think the Fox fit, I don't see it. Again, I think we're too early in the process to make that type of move as a team. But you brought up some good names, right? You think about Cam Johnson, which we've talked about the last few weeks, Simons, Sexton. Those are names that we've all said, hey, if that's a trade we make, we'll be happy in Orlando. It's guys that can score the ball, can make an impact on the court immediately for us. Another name I'll throw out there, and this is only if the Kings say, hey, we're trading Fox, we're kind of restarting things. I don't think they'll go this route, but if they do, it's Malik Monk. He's a guy that many of us wanted in free agency. We saw the scoring potential. We saw him as either starting 2-guard or a 6-man here in Orlando. How amazing would it be to get him and be able to also have KCP, who you instead signed in the offseason? That would be amazing, right? But is it doable? Who knows? But that's a name to keep in mind also that a lot of Magic fans like. When you bring up who do we give up on, who do we move, it's tough. But I think you do have to start making some decisions, man. You have a lot of proven data already on guys like Cole Anthony, guys like Gary Harris, guys like Jonathan Isaac. You got to make some decisions here. You cannot just continue to say, we're evaluating. And that kind of goes against what I said earlier. Like, yes, we're still young. We're still developing the team. We're still growing. But this team has given you some signs. We are ready. We can win some games. We can compete with the best teams in the league. But we need help. That's screaming on the screen. We need help scoring the ball. We need help shooting the ball. And unfortunately, those guys are not in the roster at this moment. So what do? Do you go and get them help now? Or do you continue to say, hey, let's play 3 more months, 4 more months, end the season, and evaluate once again in the offseason? Which people keep saying that to me, but this front office has not been one to make trades in the offseason. They never have. So why do we keep believing that that's the way they're going to do it? I don't see it. I don't see us making a big move or a mid-sized move at the draft. Like, that's just not who we are. We make moves at the deadline or via free agency or in the draft. That's kind of how we do things. So I do think that they have to do something. It doesn't have to be massive. It doesn't have to be Malik Monk. It doesn't have to be De'Aaron Fox. But it could be going after a guy like, again, you mentioned Sexton. He shouldn't cost you that much. The Jazz are trying to lose. You got plenty of picks. You got young players. Let me ask you this. Let me throw a crazy trade out there. Not sure if it works money-wise, but would you trade Jet Howard and 1 pick or 2 picks for Sexton today? Like, would you give up on the fact that, hey, Jet Howard is a prospect, he's got potential, but we're trying to win today a little bit more than we did a year ago? Is that a move you would make, or what would be your counter to that?
Yeah, so I can't, off the top of my head, I can't tell you exactly how many picks your Orlando Magic got, but the Magic got a lot, man. There's only so many more rookies and young players that you can add to this team. Eventually, the Magic are going to need to put these picks to work, right? Question is, are you willing to give up these picks for a Colin Sexton type player? You don't know who's going to be available at one point. Like, big names at any point can become available as we've seen in the past. You take a look at De'Aaron Fox. You take a look at the Jimmy Butler situation. The Magic, if the Magic wanted to go after Jimmy Butler, the Magic could. Like, we have enough assets to where the Magic could make it if they wanted it, right? The Magic don't. The Jimmy Butler isn't fit, so we're not even going down that road. But I guess I think about like Luka Doncic, for example, right? Not saying that I want him, not saying that I don't want him, not saying anything like that. But a big name like that becomes available. Magic gets a seat at the table because they have the assets to be able to make that work. Very similar to, OKC. OKC has picks out the yin yang, right? If they want to be involved, they can be involved. So you have to find that right type of balance of, sure, you can go after a player like Colin Sexton, but how much are you willing to really give up, right? But Magic have to be honest with themselves with the players that they have on their roster right now. An example would be, would you be willing to give up on a player like Tristan da Silva? He's a rookie, hasn't been with us long, but the value that we've seen, right? And obviously his contract right now, especially while he's under this rookie scale, provides you so much value. But at the same time, that value works both ways. That value works for what he's able to bring to the team, but also what people on the outside are seeing and liking. So it's a tough situation all the way around. Magic need to do something, and it doesn't matter what we have a conversation on, what we talk about. The reality is nobody knows nothing, because that's not the way that the Magic operate. If the Magic do make a trade, they're going to end up making a trade that none of us have thought about, that we haven't talked about. This player, everything has been under the radar, and it's going to be a big surprise, right? So very similar to free agency last year, where we were thinking about the Magic should go after this player, that player, and we ended up with Joe Ingles. So it's you can sit here, you can speculate all you want, you can pick players that you would love the Magic to go after, and if I can be honest with you, there's not going to be a perfect player, right? You can say you can want Anthony Simons, but at the same time, this is also another player. Sure, he's an Orlando kid from Edgewater. Sure, he can shoot the basketball. Sure, he's great offensively. But he's injured. He's hurt all the time, right? He's somebody that can't necessarily stay healthy for you. Yeah, he's maybe having a better, healthier season this year, but this is a team that struggles with health and struggles with injury. So are you willing to cash in on a player that you don't know how available he's going to be for you?
Yeah, it's tough, man. Again, we've said it before. I wouldn't want to be Anthony Parker. I wouldn't want to be Jeff Waltman making these decisions, because it's getting to the point now where, again, you're paying your superstars and you have to make decisions. You can no longer keep just dragging this along. And we saw it. The one time we've said we're going to go all in and make changes was when we traded Vooch, AG, and Fournier. After that, it's been easy. We've just been drafting guys, free agency, and we're coasting. Well, let's just keep moving here. But it's getting to a point where you have to decide who are the guys that we want to see here in Orlando, who are the guys that we unfortunately don't fit in, despite them being nice people, because we hear this all the time. Our locker room is filled with great people. We know that. These kids are really, really talented, really, really good individuals off the court. But ultimately, man, you're here to win games. So at some point, that's going to take precedent. That's going to be the decision maker, and you have to make moves that help you win basketball games. Let me ask you this, and I'll go after you, but just give me your predictions. We're sitting here today, less than now a week until the trade deadline. We both agree that they got to do something. Will they do something? We don't know. But what are your official predictions? If you were betting money on this today, what are your predictions? So 2 questions. Are they making a trade? Yes or no? If they are, who are they trading for?
So Magic will make a trade. My prediction is it's not a player that we've talked about. It's not a big name player, huge, right? And it'll be a player that can help us with shooting. No matter how you cut it, shooting is a huge issue for the Magic. You bring on KCP for that reason. He's obviously struggling offensively, or at least did for a big part of the season. It's gotten a lot better, but still not what we were expecting. But even still, like, no matter what you were expecting from KCP, he's always been a low volume shooter. It's not like was shooting 40%, shooting 9, 10 3-pointers a game. That just wasn't his style of play. Like, you can't expect for KCP to be your one and only savior that helps the percentage of the team. That's just not the way that works. So the Magic needs some additional help in order to turn this shooting around. So I think the Magic do make a move. It'll be a player that we haven't talked about, and it'll be a player that can help us with shooting.
So I hope you're right. I really, really do. My prediction is we don't make a move. I think somebody tweeted this week saying the Magic's trade deadline move is getting Paolo and Franz back. And I read that and I'm like, really? It's like, again, that's the most boring explanation, the most boring, trade deadline ever. However,
they don't care. Like Wellman and Parker, they don't care, bro. They're not here for your entertainment.
It lined up so well with what I think they're thinking right now. Like, hey, why make a rash move? Why make a sudden move when we just got our 2 young players back? Suggs is back. Let's see what they do for another 3 months. Don't forget, guys, like we only really have another 2.5 months of basketball. Like we have February, we have March, and half of April, and then it's the playoffs. So I can see that thinking also, like, hey, man, like we don't have to rush this thing. Let's finish the season. We'll evaluate next year during the offseason, whatever it might be. So my prediction is, unfortunately, for many of us listening, including myself, because I wish it was different, but my prediction is, if I was betting money on this, is that we'll hear rumors on trade deadline day. We'll get excited. We'll be on X, refreshing all day. However, 3 o'clock will come and they tried, but nothing came to fruition. That's just what I think will happen. I hope I'm wrong. I really, really do.
Yeah, I mean that. I'll be honest with you. That's a that's a very safe bet. Because again, you can use the excuse. You can use the excuse that they haven't been able to see this team really at their peak, at their best this season because of injuries. My issue with that, again, is that this is the same ish every single season. The Magic just can't find a way to, fully stay healthy for us to really come down to a conclusion. That's why the Magic, they have to eventually, at some point, and it feels like we've been saying this for the last few seasons, at some point the Magic need to consolidate. Like we're at that point right now, right? And trading, getting rid of Mo Bamba for nothing doesn't cut it. Like doesn't do us anything. Getting rid of Terrence Ross for nothing does nothing for us. Like you can sit here and say, we allowed them to we maintain that good relationship, right? But that good relationship, all it's done for us so far is allow Terrence Ross to be, on the broadcasting for us. Like that's it. Like I hope that players talk highly and they remember those things, but De'Aaron Fox becoming available and we hearing that his preferred destination is to go play with Victor Wembanyama when he hasn't proved anything, and Paolo Banchero and Franz Wagner are on a team that needs a point guard isn't mentioned.
No, man, I agree with you. I think that you think about guys like Terrence Ross, RJ Hampton, and Mo Bamba. Like we've done, well for them, let them go. We've sent them to the place they wanted to go to. Not got much in return. But again, to your point, what has that led to? What has that given us? I guess you could argue Terrence Ross for a little while was represented by Rich Paul. So was that us getting KCP now, who's represented by him? Is that something there? Is there something that helped by the fact that we did Terrence Ross a favor? Who knows? So maybe it is working its way. Who knows? But I do agree with you. We need some meaningful changes at some point. Again, it may not come this season, but we're getting closer and closer, man. You got 2 superstars in Paolo and Franz who are only going to get better and better. They're going to start winning more and more games. But we got to find a solution to the shooting and the health issues. Those are the 2 biggest things that we have to find solutions to.
Yeah, and if I'm not mistaken, I believe Rich Paul also represents Colin Sexton. So if there is a good faith agent relationship building that's come out of that. Who knows what can happen?
Yeah.
So yeah, there's here's the great news. The great news is we're gonna find out. We're gonna find out soon, extremely soon. NBA trade deadline right around the corner, February 6th at 3:00. I need to adjust my schedule for work to make sure that I leave early that day. But yeah, man, it's right around the corner where we're gonna know. And we're gonna know soon.
Yeah, man. Busy week coming up for us, man. We're hitting the West Coast road trip starting tonight in Portland. Then we go to Utah on Saturday, Golden State on Monday, Sacramento on Wednesday. Well, hey, is Aaron Fox going to be there? Who knows? And then Thursday, trade deadline day, we play at Denver. So what are your thoughts on this crucial, in my opinion, a crucial 5-game road trip for the Magic? What are your predictions for it?
Yeah, I mean, it's you look at Portland and you hope that that's a game on paper that you win. You look at Utah, same thing. Golden State, Sacramento, Denver, those are going to be your tough games on the road. So obviously teams that can really run up the numbers on you. Magic are going to need to find a way to pull through because we need these wins, right? If you do not come out of this West Coast series successful, it puts you in a really, really bad spot right before All-Star break. So you want to make the most of it. Obviously, you got to win tonight. You got to get that game on Saturday against Utah, and then you're going to have to steal one from these three teams. So you're probably looking at maybe Sacramento, Golden State, and Denver. They're going to be your toughest games. Golden State, obviously a team that can shoot the ball crazy. Buddy Hield has been playing really good basketball this season. Steph Curry still keeping their playoff dreams alive. So it's going to be big. This might be the most important stretch right now for the Magic this season because of how important it is for them to stay above that 500 mark and maintain their standings in the East.
Yeah, man, it's a crucial road trip. I know it's early. I know we still have 34 games left, but in my opinion, again, the West Coast is always tough to play in. But it's a double-edged sword because I feel like if you go on the West Coast, you get to build chemistry, you get to travel with the team, go on team dinners, at the same time, play some tough opponents. So hopefully, as we're reintegrating all those guys back into the lineup, it works in our favor. On paper, I have us winning against Portland tonight, Utah, and Golden State. I think Golden State, I love Curry, but man, that team is rough at times to watch. So hopefully we catch him on an off night on Monday. The two toughest games, in my opinion, will be Wednesday, Thursday. They're back-to-back, Sacramento and Denver. Sacramento going through these issues with Aaron Fox. He wants to get traded. Hopefully, again, you catch him on an off night. But Denver is going to be the toughest opponent. So if we can go 4-1, that would be incredible. That's what I'm hoping for. Realistically, 3-2, I'll be happy with that as well. You just cannot go any worse than that. If you come back with a 2-3 or 1-4 record, man, that's going to be brutal. Again, to your point, we're falling back more and more in the Eastern Conference. It's getting later and later in the season. It's going to be harder to catch up with the teams that are above us. Right now, we're 3 games behind Indiana for the 5th seed. So they're pulling away. So is Milwaukee. So are the Knicks. So we got to start playing better basketball, and it starts tonight.
Magic tip off against the Portland Trailblazers in just 1 hour. And we'll see where the Magic, how the Magic fare during this West Coast road trip. On that note, it is a wrap. Show is presented by Bet Online. Appreciate every single person for watching. We'll catch you guys next week.
For all the latest Magic news and updates, visit OrlandoMagicHQ.com and follow us on Instagram at OrlandoMagicHQ and on Twitter at OMagicHQ. Also, remember to subscribe to our YouTube channel and subscribe and leave a 5-star review on your favorite listening platform.